Should we treat menopause like a disease or rethink it entirely? Menopause is universal, but is it inevitable? And if it's not inevitable, can we treat it, prevent it, maybe even rethink it so radically that it no longer resembles the thing we've been told to endure? Let's start with a simple biological truth. Menopause is synonymous with ovarian failure. That's not just symbolic, it's what actually happens. Our ovaries begin to struggle in our 40s, and by around 50, for most women, they stop functioning altogether. That's the technical definition of menopause. But what if we didn't just accept that? What if we asked different questions? I'm Dr. Manna, your friend and functional medicine doctor, and this is part 1 of a 4-part series called Ovarian Aging, Menopause, and Longevity. Today, we begin with the biggest question of all. Should we treat menopause as a disease to be cured or a system failure we've normalized and come to expect? Let me be clear, I am not talking about vanity. This isn't about staying young forever or clinging to fertility. I'm talking about the biological reality of midlife. I'm talking about whether the end of ovarian function is something we simply must accept, or something we can begin to reimagine with science, compassion, and a lot more curiosity. Because menopause at its core is the result of ovarian aging. And ovarian aging may be the earliest and most visible sign of systemic aging in women. The ovaries decline long before any other organ system. By the early 40s, even otherwise healthy women begin to lose hormonal rhythms, reproductive capacity, and the endocrine support that keeps our brains sharp, our bones strong, and our metabolism steady, not to mention our mood intact. This isn't a small glitch. It's a cascading whole body shift, one that deserves attention, not dismissal. So then, is this decline inevitable? Is it natural? Or is it just something we've become used to? Let's talk about a brief history of how we got here. For decades, menopause has occupied a strange space between biology and belief, caught between being seen as a natural milestone and being treated as a disease or condition to manage. And both perspectives have shaped how women experience it. In the early 20th century, menopause was framed in the most condescending and ridiculous terms imaginable. Climacteric insanity, senile vagina. Women were sedated, diagnosed with hysteria. The word hysterectomy carries that legacy. Menopause wasn't studied or supported. It was ignored or pathologized. Then came the 1960s and Dr. Robert Wilson's book, Feminine Forever. He declared that menopause was a hormone deficiency that needed correcting and that estrogen could keep women feminine, youthful, and sexually appealing. But let's be honest, his vision wasn't rooted in women's well-being. It was rooted in making women more tolerable for men. His message was clear. A woman's value depended on her youth, her beauty, and her sexual availability. Later, it was revealed that Wilson was being paid by Wyeth, the pharmaceutical company that made Premarin the most commonly sold equine or synthetic estrogen at the time. Severely, he sold his book and he talked about estrogen as salvation for women while working quietly as a marketing agent for the company to increase their profits. Then, in the 1980s and 1990s, Dr. Wolf Utian, a deeply respected figure and the founder of the North American Menopause Society, offered a more grounded and compassionate framework. He called menopause what it is, an endocrine disorder, a condition of ovarian failure resulting in hormonal collapse. He argued that menopause should be treated with the same medical seriousness we apply to other hormone deficiencies like hypothyroidism. His reframing moved menopause into the realm of legitimate, medically addressable healthcare. It made treatment possible. But even that framing sparked concern among those who feared over-medicalization of women's bodies. So, where do we land now? By the World Health Organization's own definition, a disease is a disruption in normal function that causes recognizable signs and symptoms, not just a result of injury. Menopause meets that definition of disease. Menopause is a permanent endocrine disruption with well-documented consequences for cognition, cardiovascular health, metabolic balance, bone density, immune function, sexual health, and emotional regulation. And yet, we still hesitate to treat it seriously. Why? Because it's natural. Because it happens to everyone. And because women, frankly, have endured centuries of having their bodies pathologized, medicalized, and misunderstood. We don't want menopause to become one more thing that's treated as a defect. But here's the thing, just because something is natural doesn't mean it's harmless. Death is natural. We still work hard to delay it. If we treated menopause as a meaningful biological inflection point, not a disease, but not a non-event either, we could radically change what's possible for women in the second half of life. There is a double standard we live with every day, and here's a hard truth. Ovarian failure between 45 and 52 is treated as normal, while no other endocrine organ is allowed to shut down without medical intervention. If your thyroid slows down, we treat it. If your pancreas stops producing insulin, we intervene. But when the ovaries fail, taking your hormones, your libido, your emotional resilience, and the sharpness of your brain with them, we call it natural and move on. And here's where it gets even more absurd. Men talking about living to 150 are seen as visionaries. They're building companies, running biohacking protocols, and getting billions in funding. But when women say, I want to feel clear-headed, sexual, strong, and emotionally steady at 55, they're told to manage their expectations. They're called vain, hysterical, high maintenance. We have to call this what it is, a cultural and medical double standard that devalues female biology and ignores the cost of ignoring ovarian health. What we should be talking about instead, health span and not lifespan. I'm not talking about making 75-year-old women fertile. I'm not talking about reversing menopause. I am talking about extending health span, the number of years a woman can live with energy, clarity, intimacy, and independence. That means protecting bone density without relying on bisphosphonates, preventing dementia by supporting the brain before it deteriorates, preserving muscle and metabolic health through hormonal balance, sustaining libido, intimacy, and identity beyond reproduction. Menopause is not the finish line. It's a biological fork in the road, and we need a new map. So, should we treat menopause as a disease? No, not in the insurance code sense. But yes, we should treat it as a critical physiological transition with far-reaching effects, and one that deserves medical, scientific, and cultural attention. Because menopause may be natural, but suffering through it is not. I'm Dr. Manna, and this was part 1 of a 4-part series, Ovarian Aging, Menopause, and Longevity. In part 2, we'll dive into what's actually happening to the ovary during midlife. Why does it age faster than other organs? What are the triggers, and what can we do about it? If this episode resonated with you, please hit subscribe, share with a friend, and let's rewrite the narrative together. Because the second half of life deserves better.